Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our heroic super guide for Netherspite from One Night in Karazhan. Netherspite has a pretty cool mechanic with the two portals that give him Wind Fury and only taking 1 damage at a time, but you can steal those effects. His big threat, obviously, in heroic mode is that unchecked, he will do 16 damage to your face per turn. The main two ways you want to stop him are taunt minions and freezing his face. Freezing his face is super effective. It takes away a lot of the threat. Obviously, you have a limited number of freezes per turn is the downside. He doesn't play any minions, but has a lot of spells to remove your minions that you're putting out to try get in his way. He essentially has things like Sap and Equality and Arcane Explosion to combo with that. The core of your strategy is... Firstly, you just need a 1-drop, or you're taking 16 damage to the face straight away, and at any point if you misstep or he has the perfect removal, he'll finish your life total off. So you need a 1-drop, things like Glacial Shard to freeze him, or even things like Goldshire Footman have a place now. And you need to curve out pretty well. You immediately want to follow up with a 2-drop so that both portals are blocked, etc. General strategy is you want to put taunts on the right. You want to put taunts where they can only take 1 damage per turn so that they stay out as taunts for as long as possible. And then you want to put minions on the left to block his Wind Fury that have Death Rattle, because he will keep clearing your board and killing your minions. You want minions to spawn in their place that continue to do damage to his face. Shredders are good, even eggs have a place, Nerubian eggs, Devil Saws. Scalemancer is quite good because eventually that will die and deal 8 damage to him. Or just hold him back from doing AoE, which will give you plenty of time. You want to be very careful with your taunts because the one immediately to the right of his right portal will only take 1 damage at a turn. If you put a second taunt to the right of that, you might think, oh cool, even more taunt, but then he'll be able to just kill that in one blow. It won't have the same effect. So unless you're desperate to save life, you often actually want to save your taunts and only put 1 out at a time on the right, as long as you can survive that. There are exceptions, but as a general pattern, when you're relatively safe and have multiple things out with Death Rattle that are safe, etc., you can usually afford to do that. The final thing I will say is one thing that really is frustrating in this matchup is there's a bug, at least last time I played this, there's a bug where your placement of minions is not necessarily preserved when he clears your board relative to the portals. So you might do something smart like leave a Scalemancer directly to the left of the Wind Fury portal, thinking if he does AoE to your board, you'll have an 8/8 to the left of the Wind Fury portal, be able to immediately do 16 damage to him. The problem is, yeah, last time I played this, that stuff positioning is not respected at all. The portals relative to Death Rattle seems to come out at random positions, which definitely takes away an element of strategy and is just frustrating as you try to set things up well, but it isn't respected. Maybe it's been fixed in a patch since it was a while ago that I played this out, but yeah, just be aware of that as a possibility if you are working on this one. Let's look at the specific decks I used. For Druid, I only have one 1-drop, and that's probably a mistake. I think you'll see as I kind of got more used to making these decks as we progress, I started including more than that, including Glacial Shards and so on, because if you don't draw that, you're immediately taking 16 damage, and it's gonna hurt. Dirty Rats are great because he plays no minions. Death Lords make it into a lot of my decks, though not this one. Druid of the Swarm, nice high health taunt, yet again. Death Rattles in the form of Horned Creepers, Nerubian eggs, Devil Saw eggs. Even Ice Rager has a place because you just want a lot of attack for stats if you're trying to kind of burst him down from the left. Stonehill Defender, it's great to be able to play a taunt and immediately ensure you have another taunt to follow up. One way you lose this matchup is just getting an uneven distribution between your Death Rattles and taunts. If you can't put down a taunt to replace whenever a taunt disappears, you're going to just take too much damage. Infested Tauren's great, Shredder's great, obviously Scalemancers we talked about. Twilight Summoner, put that next to the when, you know, put that on the left and you may have a 5/5 destroyer. It kind of acts like another egg, essentially. And one nice thing in Druid, other than more, you know, taunt that leaves behind another taunt in Sludge Belcher is great. Hadronox is a nice way, if you have the, you know, if you have a free turn where you can actually plop him down, potentially get a ton of taunts back to protect you, can be pretty awesome. After Druid is when I had the realization that Freeze is pretty damn good at protecting you. So we're putting in Glacial Shards and Frost Elementals. We have more 1-drops we're starting to see, even including Goldshire Footman, so we now have 6 1-drops in the deck. Annoyatrons are great because of the Divine Shield. They're the kind of minion you can even put as a second taunt minion to the right of the one getting the protection from his right portal. A lot of these Death Rattles we've talked about, Death Lords and Dirty Rats, again, he does not have minions. Another thing I realized was a good idea to start throwing in is Saboteurs, because they force him to take his whole turn or a large chunk of his turn using his hero power, leaving him very little mana to actually play spells. And that can be really nice to just give you a turn to kind of set yourself up to be relatively safe. Stonehill Defend is great again, and Lotheb's another good addition, because if he can't play spells, and, you know, you're designed to be able to have taunts out to protect you and whatnot, it's really his spells that screw that up, because they just, you know, he'll just destroy all your minions with Equality Swipe, Equality Arcane Explosion, he'll just push the, you know, sap your taunt, essentially. Lotheb makes it much harder to do anything valuable, to do multiple combo things on a turn, and can, again, set you up to just make your board extra safe. And High Main is Hunter-specific late-game threat to include, again, things with Death Rattle is really good. And that same formula is pretty much what we'll be following. In the case of Mage, you have 0 mana freeze. You know, it's usually a useless card, but you just want to freeze his face with as little mana as possible to still put out the minions you want. Glacial Shard to freeze, Mirror Image as a double taunt for 1 is pretty nice, arguably better than Shield Bearer. Similar things in the 2 and 3 drop slot that we've already seen. Eggs, Death Rattles, Taunts, and Saboteurs, Stonehill Defenders. Water Elemental, the ability to keep freezing his face repeatedly is too hard to turn down. Absolutely amazing. You could possibly even work in Jaina Death Knight, though it might be a little ambitious. Lotheb again makes the cut, as do Scalamancers and Sludge Belchers. With this basic formula figured out, there's not a lot of variation from class to class. As we go through, I'm just going to point out from now on class-specific additions to the basic formula of cheap freeze, taunt, Death Rattle minions including eggs, Lotheb to shut things down, Saboteur to shut things down, Scalamancers for defensive things, Sludge Belchers, Frost Elementals, etc. So the Paladin specific additions we have are Righteous Protector, a taunt with Divine Shield for 1, hell yeah. Wicker Flame Burn Bristle, again a taunt with 1, and if it gets in an attack or 2, actually healing you up is pretty nice. And Sunkeeper Tarim can activate a bunch of your eggs and lead to just more damage, because a lot of your things have 0 attack or 1 attack and are waiting, and suddenly can be doing a bunch of burst damage to help burst him down. And Sunkeeper Tarim is a taunt himself, so you play him on the right when you need a taunt. And Tyrion, Death Rattle with taunt with Divine Shield that also, when it eventually does die, gives you a weapon to do an extra 15 damage. Again, Uther of the Ebon Blade could actually make it in because of the lifesteal potential. Making the priest deck, I realized that Arcane Nullify is a pretty good inclusion because of its property that it can't be targeted by spells or hero powers, meaning it can't be sacked. That's pretty nice, because one of the things that definitely can help make you lose if he just keeps sapping your taunts and smacking you in the face. Other than that, this particular deck actually has no priest-specific cards, I believe, just the usual package we've been seeing and talking about. And with that neutral package we saw in Priest, basically the whole deck can be neutral. That's one way to beat him. You don't need to change it much per class. With Rogue, you can include Valera the Hollow to just protect you for an extra turn, gives you a free extra draw to draw in additional taunt, additional burst damage, etc. that you need. Also start including target dummies, basically as good as Goldshire Footman, but cheaper. Can work it in potentially with something else on a later turn where the extra mana is important. With Shaman, we add in a couple of freeze options, since Shaman randomly got a bunch of freeze cards in the Knights of the Frozen Throne expansion. Warlock, we have a 2-mana Murloc that can freeze Netherspite again. And Voodoo Hexer can potentially, kind of like Water Elemental, if it survives for a bit, potentially keep freezing him, and that can just buy you a ton of advantage. Otherwise, all elements of the neutral package we've been looking at. For Warlock, we're essentially running what I consider the perfected neutral package. Not a single Warlock card in here. As I worked through all the refinements, I came to this as the final neutral-only list that is optimal if you're only running neutral cards. We have target dummies in there, and shield bearers, and Annoyatrons. A lot of the tools we've been talking about, Arcane Nullifier does make the cut, leaving room for one Shredder, but yeah, this is a very reliable deck to take him down with, and doesn't even require class cards. They're just bonuses for other possibilities. The deck I used at the time pre-existed a lot of the cards we've been seeing. Some of the things I had, it was still, running similar themes. The first 3 will look familiar. Tournament Attendees I put in as just a 1-mana taunt. Needed more 1-mana options to survive at the beginning. Balefin Tidehunter. A little bit awkward because the taunt it summoned is kind of going to be in the wrong place in a certain sense. And yeah, not so sure about that one. I think there's stronger stuff in the 2-mana spot. Bolster, questionable. It can buff your taunts, but that said, they're usually relying on not taking damage by being to the right of the right portal. Deathlord, we have more heal in this one between Earthen Ring Farseer and Healbot and Vendors, so we try to out-heal him a bit. Though he's doing so much damage, it might buy you an extra turn doing a Healbot or something. But again, this was what I used at the time. I hadn't perfected it as much as I would definitely go with the more modern versions you've seen so far if you are actually looking for a deck to take him down. And then the harder proposition is doing it all with basic and common cards only. Certainly some of the tools we've seen, like Shield Bearer, Annoyatron, Horned Creeper, Piloted Shredders, Scalemancers, were in those other decks, but we lose a lot of the really powerful Death Rattles, and some of the additional taunts we really want, like Sludge Belcher. So we kind of buff it up with, I know a guy has a potential to discover one of those better taunt minions, and you can kind of play it on a down turn where you don't need to immediately put out a taunt. Public Defender, nice high health 2-drop, Fierce Monkey. Scarlet Crusader, the idea is this is something that just has high attack for its cost, and a bit of survivability against AoE that can be doing 6 to him per turn that it's out there. Bloodhoof Brave, Ornery Direhorn, additional taunts. Obsidian Destroyer has the potential to keep summoning little taunts to get in his way. And Tarlord, a nice big taunt if he's not just instantly sapping it. Definitely a hard proposition, beating him with these basic and common cards only. You just don't have the guaranteed survivability of your board with eggs and things that you do in the other matchups, and you don't have as powerful taunts to keep him at bay, but it is possible. As you can see in the screenshot, we did finally get him even with basic and common cards only, and we've gone through decks you can use with every single class, so honestly, as we saw, a neutral only package is actually good enough. And preferable even with some classes. It's just that's where some of the really good Death Rattles and Taunt minions, which are the core of your deck, and freeze effects do lie. Good luck if you're still trying it. It's quite a fun mechanic to play around. Definitely a lot of thinking and strategy involved. It's not just autoplay. Good luck. See you next time.